You're listening to the Team Guru podcast, bringing to life the theory and principles of leadership.
Hello, my name's David Frizzell, and in this episode 85 of the Team Guru podcast, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of being a great leader. Scott Stein is the author of a brand new book called Leadership Hacks, Clever Shortcuts to Boost Your Impact and Results. And the book is full of exactly that, clever tips and tricks, hacks if you will, that you can start doing right now, today, that will make you a more impressive and effective leader. Scott talks about three really obvious but clever levels of leadership: leading yourself, leading people one-on-one, and leading teams. I asked him to talk us through his top hacks, his best clever tips in each of those domains. And there are some complete gems in there. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Scott Stein. Scott Stein, welcome to the Team Guru podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Scott, I've just recently read your book, which is a really neat little book. I very much enjoyed it. It's called Leadership Hacks, Clever Shortcuts to Boost Your Impact and Your Results. We hear so much about hacks in today's world. There's all sorts of TV shows, life hacks. Every second podcast is something hack. Taking shortcuts. It's all about, that's what our world's all about today. But I've not stumbled across the use of that word in the leadership world or the world of leadership development. How did you come to settle on that concept, the concept of hacks, for your take on leadership? How did you get there?
Well, it actually came from a client. I was actually in a meeting with a client and looking at some situations and issues and problems that their leadership team had. And as we were talking through it, I shared what I call a delegation model or a delegation hack. And they said, that's it. That's what I need. I need something to help my leadership team hack what they're doing. Do you have a whole bunch of those? And it really grew from there.
You know, when I first read the title of your book, I was actually a little bit put off. I'm a real fan of Stephen Covey, and I know that Covey almost literally, I don't think he uses the word hacks, but in his book, he talks about the growing habit in our society of looking for Band-Aid, quick fix solutions, where, of course, so much of what he's about is understanding what's at the core of you and letting behaviors flow from those values and those principles. So when I read hacks, I was like, there's no such thing as kind of quick fix leadership. But your book is actually a little deeper than that. And it does give a lot more understanding to the behaviors that are underneath it. More understanding than I thought reading your title. In fact, you put me straight in the first chapter when you explained the modern use of the term hacks, and it's used a lot more broadly than I gave it credit for.
Yeah, if you think about, the word hacks, as you mentioned earlier, it's been around for a while. And really, it was really started around in the 1960s or 70s, or even before that, when people would actually look at ways to hack circuit boards in the early computers. So it was actually the hard hacks that they initially looked at it. And then from there, kind of evolved into, all right, if you're an IT and computer, can you hack ways to get things done? And hack really meant, how do you find things that aren't actually kind of out in the visible approach? They weren't written about in the universities. So you can do it in a different way and actually a smarter way. And then if you go forward in time as well with Facebook, essentially even the manifesto that was put out before the IPO was all around what's called the hacker's way. And one of the things that Facebook still has to this day is they have an annual hacking day. And the hacking day is designed to break our current systems to find a way to do it faster, quicker, and easier. And I think that's what hack is now about.
Yeah.
Really, for me, a leadership hack is anything that helps you accomplish more in less time.
All right, well, let's get into it. You're absolutely right. And it's not so much about hacking being superficial. It's everything that you just said. It's fast, clever, different. It's finding a new and better way. And I really like that definition. So you've broken down your book into 3 really simple sections. I like it. I like the way it's presented. It speaks to me, and it breaks leadership down into 3 really logical chunks: leading myself, leading people one-on-one, and leading teams. Tell us about, let's go back to that personal hacks, leading yourself. Of course, we all know as leaders, you can't lead anyone. You can't lead anything until you are leading yourself. Tell us about some of those really powerful personal hacks that you've developed over your career.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head when it comes to leaders need to actually take a look at themselves before they start thinking about what am I going to get my people to do. And what I've found over the last 20 years, Australia, and then I was in America before that, was that the leaders that actually know how to put something in place, make it work, and then actually teach to their staff, the ones that are admired more. So the first section that I looked at in the book is really about individual hacks, the things that individual leaders can do to really actually kind of hack their time, hack their approach, be more innovative than everybody else. And really, there was a couple of big ones that I stumbled upon. The first one, and this came from my research, was about all the distractions. And there's a heap of distractions out there that stop us from doing what we know we should actually get done. And
what
the
are the
first one
things? What are they? Because as soon as you say that, everyone who's listening to this and imagining their time at work is just like, yeah, my day seems to be one connected line of distraction.
Oh, yeah. In fact, there was a recent report that was just come out by Udemy, and it was the workplace distraction report for 2018. And what it showed is 69% of full-time employees are distracted at work.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing that they found is 54% of employees surveyed attribute underperformance to these distractions.
Wow.
And in my research, what I've really found is there's kind of 5 main distractions. The first one is what I call lack of energy, which doesn't sound like a typical distraction, but because we're switched on all the time, everything's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, what's happening is we have no downtime. And when we don't get any downtime, our productivity starts to decrease because our energy isn't there. We don't have the bounce back. We don't have the spring. We actually don't have the brain cells firing on all cylinders. So we actually can keep that energy up and that focus up.
Yeah.
That was the first thing.
Hey, you painted a really nice picture in your book where you talked about this obvious thing. It's come up on my podcast so many times where we are constantly connected. And I know people are sick of hearing that, but the reality of the difference between you and me going to work and our dads at the same stage of their career, I mean, they could leave the office at 5 p.m. and typically they really did leave the office at 5 p.m., if not before, and they were uncontactable until the next day. They didn't have emails to check. They could literally switch their brain off and engage with the family or engage with whatever it is what they were doing. So they were fresher at work and they had fewer distractions. When they did arrive at work, their brain hadn't been going at 100 miles an hour overnight, and while they were hanging out at home and on the way to work in the bus, they were probably just sort of staring out of the bus window, watching the world go by or reading a book at most, whereas you and I are sitting there fiddling on our phone, listening to podcasts, flicking through the news while we're listening to a podcast. I know that's really obvious and everyone listening already knew what I just said, but the impact it has on keeping our mind active all of the time is so enormous. We really have gone through a revolution in our lifetime.
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. And the other thing that I found, another one of the distractions, is we have a biological need to be busy. There's a really famous experiment from the 1950s by Olds and Milner. And what they did is they looked at rats. They actually put electrodes on their brain. And what they did is whenever the rat hit a lever, they would release some dopamine into the brain. And what happened is, as a result of the rats hitting the lever, some of them wanted that hit of dopamine so much because they were so addicted, they would press the lever up to 700 times an hour.
Yeah.
What the research has shown, as humans, we're the same. Whenever we
addicted to being busy.
Yeah. It gets that dopamine going. And that's what people are having a hard time stopping. That distraction is, as long as I'm doing something, I'm fine. When if in reality, I'm probably doing a lot of time fillers that aren't helping me get the things done that I need to.
Scott, is that one of the things that you hear most from your clients? I know it's certainly one of the things I hear most in every industry that I work in. People will tell you just how busy they are, and they kind of add the sidebar, but you don't understand, in this industry, we're super busy. We're under the pump, as if I couldn't possibly know if I haven't been part of this industry before, because of all industries, they are the busiest. Is that one of the things that you hear most from your clients? Is it consistent across every industry you work with?
It's consistent. So
what is it about? What's at the heart of that?
Industries. I think part of it is they're just overwhelmed. There's so much information, so much technology coming in, and they don't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
They don't know how to put limits on it. You know, if you think about when we grew up, you know, when you had a telephone, it was on a cord to the wall, a couple of buttons that you push, and you might sit there for half an hour on the floor talking, you know, but if you wanted it, you had to physically go to wherever that phone was.
Yeah, you had to be home and get your friend to agree to call you at the right time.
Yeah. And then when mobile phones came, all right, we could be a little bit more mobile, but the first mobile phones were pretty archaic.
Yeah.
You know, you could just make some calls. If you were lucky, you could actually maybe play Snake on it.
Yeah.
But when the iPhone was released in 2007, it completely changed everything.
Of course.
It put us into apps. It put us into music. It put us into email, and everything's 24/7. And what I'm finding is people just don't know how to switch off.
Yeah.
They don't know how to stop that technology. And part of it is because they've never learned or had the need previously to know how to switch off.
Yeah, it is amazing. And it's a thing that we talk about a lot, and it's kind of obvious. Everyone is engaging with what we're talking about every day, but I wonder how often we really do stop and think about the ramifications of it across our life. You know, there's obviously some fantastic side benefits, enormous benefits that come with the life that we have, but we do need to continually remind ourselves of the costs that come with it as well. I'd take technology over no technology any day. I'd rather be alive in 2018 than be my age in 1972 any day of the week. But it is, as I say, really important that we're aware and we're managing in our life the distractions, because as you experience and as I experience in my line of work, everyone thinks they are under the pump. Everyone thinks they are super busy. And as you say, what it comes down to largely is our inability to manage all of the options that are around us, all of the information that is flowing across our desk, through our computers, into our ears. We're overwhelmed. Sorry, mate, I'm doing a terrible job of jumping in all the time because I find this so fascinating. You're talking about the top 5 distractions. Number 1 was lack of energy. Number 2 was our addiction to being busy. What's number 3, Scott?
Number 3 is technology and how it overwhelms, right? Which is what we've been talking about. Not knowing how to switch the off switch. The 4th one is about the mindset and self-doubt. And I find that happens a lot to people. They start second guessing.
Yeah.
And why are they second guessing? Because they're so overwhelmed. They don't have time to sit back, be objective, and actually look at things the right way.
Hey,
and of course, Scott, the final distraction is just interruptions.
Just like what I just did to you. I'm being terrible. I'm in a really interrupting mood. I just want to jump in and talk about this stuff because it's so interesting. Back to number 4, the mindset. I reckon unless you stop and think about it, most of us aren't aware of the level of self-doubt that is going on in our colleagues at work, because people don't usually wear it on their sleeves so explicitly. It normally turns up in other ways. But when you are in a position like yours, I'm sure you've found just the percentage of people who have regular episodes or experiences of self-doubt, the true doubt as to whether I'm good enough to do this job, if I can do it, can I impress, am I going to drop the ball on this? It's really enormous. And we know that the more connected we are with technology, the less connected we tend to be with the people around us. Is that idea of self-doubt one of the quiet, not killers in our workplace, but certainly one of the quiet eroders in our workplace?
Yeah, I think it's something that's there in the background. And what I find, the more senior the leader, the louder that voice of self-doubt gets.
And the more,
there's a saying, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah, the more isolated they are.
Very lonely at the top. Yeah, definitely. And without having somebody to be their advisor, to be a soundboard that's not on the board, that's not in their executive team, it's massive. I remember working with the CEO years ago, and billion-dollar company went through massive things as far as the market in the public domain and everything else. And I remember talking with him afterwards going, how did you come up with the strategy you came up with? You know, what was the process? And he just looked at me and just laughed. And he said, I had no clue. I said, we had no time to do this strategy. We didn't do it well. We made every mistake. He said, and the thing that was killing me is I was just doubting everything that I was thinking. And I didn't have a way to get clear of all that and get some time to just think clearly.
Yeah.
Without that time to just step out of that madness and chaos, you just don't have a chance to think clearly or even gather your thoughts clearly.
Yeah.
And it's really having a big impact.
Whether it's a half-day Energizer session or a comprehensive team and leadership program, Team Guru's unique approach could be just what the doctor ordered for your organisation.
It's so true. I just did a little podcast on that myself a few weeks ago, giving yourself that Don Draper time to lie on your couch, whether it's real or metaphoric, and just have a good think. In our days of back-to-back meetings and overflowing inbox in our emails, we just don't give ourselves that time to think. And of course, the fifth one is interrupting, which you've already said, which I interrupted you through. And after I read part of your book, I was at work the next day, and I noticed one of the silent interrupters that I'd never noticed before was just people walking past my desk. I didn't realize until I read it in your book just how often I look up and break my chain of thought or my concentration just because someone's walked past. Now, they haven't done anything to interrupt me. They haven't reached out or said anything. I have just been looking, I guess, subconsciously for some kind of a distraction. The other ones that you talk about are kind of obvious and profound. We experience them all the time. Email, phone calls, people coming to your desk, colleagues in the next cubicle talking loudly on the phone. That some of the pitfalls of the open plan office, all those ones are really obvious. But I just found that one, the visual interruption of someone walking past, really interesting.
Yeah, either visual or it might be temperature. Where I've had some clients where the staff that are next to the windows because the sun's coming in, especially in Queensland or in New South Wales or wherever else, they're uncomfortable and everything else. And then the other ones are the other side of the open plan office underneath the vents for the air conditioning. And, so they're always getting up to get out away from their desk. Yeah. Again, it's amazing if you look at all these little interruptions that kind of slow us down.
Yeah. You add, exactly right. You add all those up and there you have just right there, a quagmire of interruptions. All right. Well, they're the 5 interruptions. So what are the hacks?
Great question. Some of them are obvious, so as far as if you don't have the energy, well, block out the time. Take the time to recharge your batteries. If you are having the interruptions, do something to limit the interruptions. It may even be changing where your computer is at so you're not distracted visually by people walking by. And a lot of people go, well, that's a little bit rude if I'm not facing out to the open plan office. And I'm going, well, if somebody really needs you, they're going to come over and walk and stand next to your desk anyways.
Yeah.
So little things like that can make a massive difference. And on the email, I think that's something to just train yourself in, to not feel the need to constantly check your email. And there's a lot of email hacks that we can go through in a little bit. But as far as mindset and self-doubt, I think part of that is getting you to take the time so you can think. You were talking about how our parents' generation would, take the bus and have time to read a book or think. We don't have that time now.
No.
And usually it's not exploring what other options are. It's usually just responding to emails and responding to all the tasks that we have on our plate. So it's about scheduling time to be creative, to be innovative, and to recharge the batteries. That's the really big thing.
You've got to carve that time out for yourself, don't you? No one's going to give it to you. It's not going to fall into your lap unless you consciously and very deliberately find that time for yourself. It just won't come along, whether it is just saying, look, all right, on the way into work, on the bus in the morning, I'm not going to listen to 5 podcasts and surf through my favorite news apps. I'm just going to sit here, stare out the window and have a good think, or just relax my brain so that when I get to work, I can do so in a state of something a little bit under frenzy.
Yeah, that's right. And there's something else that I looked at in the book, and it's an actual exercise called an activity hack. And essentially what it's doing is looking at where has your focus and activity been in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you just create a little mind map.
Yeah.
And you actually capture all of the main areas that you've been focusing on. And then what you do is you actually put a percentage of time to them, which is the hard thing. Yeah. Because most people aren't aware of where they're spending their time.
Yeah.
And then from there, the next step is ignore what that is and actually map out what should you be doing with your time. Map it out again, identify the percentages of time, and then you can use that to go, all right, where have I been the last 2 weeks and where should I be? And it's a simple activity, but geez, it's really powerful.
Along those same lines, you mentioned something else in your book. I think at some point you just said, imagine if someone could film you for the day and we just watched that show. And I thought, geez, I would like to think that it'd be kind of productive, but it's scary to think maybe it's not. Maybe if you could somehow capture all the times my mind is distracted by little things, or I'm moving from one activity to another and back again and not giving either of them my full attention. All of the distractions that we've just talked about, it's, I don't know. I don't know whether I'd come out with a pass mark or not. I'd like to think I would, but I'm betting there are some days where I just would fail quite miserably at that.
Yeah, well, and I reckon most people live in what I call the world of delusion. So that means
I'm a better driver than most people.
Yeah, that's it. They think they're better than what they are. And I remember we did some work in an automotive dealership, and it was with the service advisors. So these are the people when you drop your car off for a service, they're the ones that greet you and they find out what's going on, and then they kind of hand it off to the technicians who actually get on the tools and do the work. And we did a little time motion study with a camera in there and watched where one of them walked from their desk to the car park to individual cars 32 times in one day.
Wow. Yeah.
And what it was is because they had to get the owner's books out of the cars to stamp them, right?
Yeah.
Part of the things that a lot of dealerships do.
Yeah.
And we go, well, were you aware you were spending that much time? You know, why wouldn't you just change the process where you might meet people out there and remind them to have the books?
Yeah.
And just one little tweak
Yeah.
completely changed their whole day and freed up massive amounts of time.
Yeah.
So again, most of us just aren't aware of it. We're just going through the motions on the treadmill.
All right. Well, where to now? We're still talking about personal hacks, I'm guessing. We've talked about distractions. There's also productivity and technology and email. Where are some of your best tips amongst those other things that we can concentrate when it comes to leading ourselves?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is hacking your inbox.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know that all the emails are coming in, right? Every day we get more and more and more emails. We can't keep up with it. The McKinsey Global Institute did a report, and they said most employees spend an average of 2.6 hours per day reading and answering emails.
Yeah.
Right. So if you total that up, that's about 13 hours of lost time.
Yeah. Well,
some
of which might be productive, though, right?
Don't do it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, some of it will be.
Yeah.
But I look at that going, well, if I can make myself 10 or 20% more productive, that's 13 hours a day. That's another 1.5 or 3 hours. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'll take it. So there's one of the biggest things you can do to hack your inbox is there's somebody that his name is Kevin Cruz, and he wrote a great book called The 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on the New York Times bestseller list. And what he did is he studied habits of billionaires, entrepreneurs, Olympic athletes, and he found that many of them actually use a system to try and actually limit their distractions and their time and be more effective. And what he did through that process is he created what's called a 3-2-1-0 approach.
All right. Tell us about that.
And this is for hacking your inbox.
Hacking our inbox.
So the way that it works, he recommends that you schedule 3 times per day to check your email, morning, noon, and night.
Yep.
And then set your phone timer to 21 minutes. And that creates a game. So when you check it, you only have 21 minutes to spend on the email. And that's it.
Yeah.
3 times a day.
Yeah.
And your goal is to get to 0. So no emails by the time your timer goes off. And this creates a little bit of a game. And I think there's something in what's called gamification.
Yeah.
When things become a game, they stop being a chore. And I think that's one little simple game that people can use rather than going, I'm going to get distracted and keep checking my inbox every 3 minutes. Right? I'm not going to check it at all except for 3 times a day.
I reckon a bunch of people just heard you then, Scott, and said, all right, first of all, 21 minutes is nowhere near enough if I'm doing it 3 times a day because I get 150 a day and X percentage of them are really important. And there would have been people who are also thinking, I can't wait until lunchtime to check them. What if something's important? What if someone has sent me an email that needs to be actioned straight away? What do you say to those, I reckon, almost reflex reactions from a good percentage of people?
So that means you're not effective.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm going,
the hard
wait
truth.
A minute, what do you mean? Right. So maybe you go, well, okay, rather than 3, maybe I make it a 6-2-1-0. So maybe I'll do it 6 times. I think for most people, it's just important to limit the checking.
Yeah.
And if it's not 3, maybe the goal is to get to 3 times a day. So maybe you do it twice in the morning, twice towards the middle of the afternoon, and twice at the end of the day. So I think you can hack that hack, if that makes sense, to make it work for you.
But the real thing is also, the result is what you don't want is to have it open on your second screen all the time and being drawn into it every single time you get a new email, which is what I think a lot of us do just absolutely naturally. We have it open and we will be working on another document and distract ourselves every time a new email comes.
Correct. And then you stop your flow. Yeah. Then you go off to something else. Correct. There's another thing that I think you can use, again, on hacking your inbox, and it's a 4-step process. And I found that when I actually studied lots of different people, there was one person who's very senior in one of the banks. She does a lot of hiring for the CEOs and all of that in HR, and she oversees a number of territories. And I was talking to her about how she does email. And what she mentioned really clicked with me. And then what I found is it happens with lots of people that are really, really quick. What I mean by that is people that are on top of their lives, on top of their inboxes, seem to actually hack their inbox. And there's a 4-step process that she used that I think is really useful. The first thing that she did is she scans. So whenever she's got her inbox, she doesn't read, because most of us read from the top down and click, 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 click. First step is just scan through. Right? So don't even read or click through, just scan what's there. Second step is delete.
Yeah.
Get rid of the things that are not relevant, not important, that you don't even need.
Because you know straight away some of them are nothing.
Right. And what you'll find, again, if you're getting 150 emails a day, I reckon half of them are junk. And that's what the research is showing. More and more people are getting more junk things that just don't matter. They just distract you.
Yeah.
The third step is then sorting through. Now, a lot of the email programs can allow you to do this. Right. So if you think about it, Google actually has, what you actually want specifically. It'll actually give you primary and social and promotions. So you can actually use that to sort through. You can do it by the person that you received it from or the topic, and then go to the respond. Then you respond based on the things that are the most important. And I think if a lot of people actually just did a small little 4-step hack, it would make them find heaps of time, rather than being distracted throughout the day.
Hey, you know what, Scott? When I read that 4-step process, I actually felt pretty good about myself because it made me realize that's kind of what I do. I don't go through every email that's there. I do scan, delete. I delete a lot of emails before I even open them, and I'm just assuming everyone does that. I see stuff that is not relevant to me. Delete. Happy to see unopened emails go out the trash. And then just open the ones that I've got to deal with right now. But what I don't do, mate, is that 3-2-1, limit myself to 3 times a day. I'm going to try that because I think that's a really great one because I am, even though I'm supposed to be aware of this stuff because of what I do, I am just becoming super aware of how much I'm distracted by having it open on my second screen. And in those periods of time of the day where I'm sitting at my desk trying to get something done, I just have it sitting there. It's crazy. Now that I think about it, it's just a really bad habit that I'm going to change as of tomorrow. You have inspired me.
Great. Good to hear, mate.
All right. Now we better move on before. Okay.
No worries.
No. If you want to say something else, let's drop another gold nugget. That's great.
One more hack, because I reckon this is really important. The other thing that you can do is you can hack the emails that you send.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Right? So this is great. Yeah.
The emails we send are crap.
Yeah.
All right. They are.
No doubt.
Right? So most of them, you get an email and you're not sure what to do with it. So just a couple of things. If you hack the emails that you send, it's going to make everybody else more productive, and they'll actually start doing the same thing back with you.
Yeah.
So one or two big important points around this. One is make sure that you actually don't just send a flat text. Create your email that has text that's formatted and has what's called visual content.
Yeah.
So what that means is you bold something, if you use bullets, if you underline. What that does is it allows somebody, when they get the email, to quickly scan and see, what are you asking them to do?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing you can do. It doesn't take a lot of time. The second thing, again, on hacking the emails that you send.
Because just on that one, because like you say in your book, that's newspapers are written that way. Websites are created that way because it catches our attention and it engages our brain, because we don't just read left to right, top to bottom. Our eyes are scanning all around the place. So as an email writer, why not give our audience something for their eyes to feast on and to be able to understand what's the important bits and where they should be reading?
Yeah. And what you'll find is you'll get more responses and better quality responses when you do that because people know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
The other thing, specify the outcome at the very beginning of your email. Really, there's usually 5 outcomes that you want. You're sending an email. It's an FYI. Here's just something you need to be aware of.
Yep.
Or I need to gather some information from you. I need this information.
Yep.
Or I need you to make a decision.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on.
Yeah.
Make a decision. It may be to act. I need you to act on this because of this and this and this. And the final one is we need to get face to face or have a conference call because we need to actually have a discussion.
Yeah.
Even putting one of those 5 specific outcomes at the very top. In fact, I have some clients that put that in their actual subject.
Yeah.
I get the subject. First thing is FYI, info, decide, act, meet. And I know straight away what you need me to do.
Yeah, that's great. And because not only does it tell the reader what you want them to do, it kind of gives a little bit of guidance for you as the email writer. What do I really mean by this email? What do I want as a result of this? It's a two-way, double-edged sword, that one. No, that's because that's a bad thing. Double-edged sword. That's the wrong saying. It works 2 ways, that email. It benefits both sender and receiver is what I mean by that.
Well, what it does is it forces you to be really clear on, all right, if I'm sending this email, what do I want them to do with it? Yeah. And if we had more people doing that, the number of emails that are sent would be reduced. Yeah. But, in fact, I had to send an email yesterday, and I did the formatting and everything else. I wanted to send it, and I thought, you know what? I can't send it yet. I need this other piece of information in it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to send them 2 separate emails, which means it's taking twice of my time, and it's going to take twice of their time to open 2 separate ones. Where if I could have just waited, which I did, to get the other piece of information, then I could actually save both of them.
Do you want team and leadership development programs that actually work? Contact Team Guru today so we can start the conversation.
You mentioned someone in your book who I've had on the podcast. Is it John Jury who talks about friction and flow? And
no, that would be Dermot. Dermot.
You're right, Dermot. Dermot Crowley. Yeah. Fantastic podcast. Correct. Not that long ago on my show. I love that concept of friction or flow. Teams are either in a state of friction or flow. If you're doing what you just described there, sending an email that's not clear about the outcome, sending it before you've got all the information and therefore have to send a second, weighing people's inbox down, slowing them down, that's just one of the ways that we create friction for each other. Whereas the other thing you described, waiting till you've got all the information, setting up some headings so people can scan it and understand it, making it clear what the action is. This is an FYI, or this is for your consideration, or this is for a decision. It just creates that state of flow. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everything's moving smoothly. We're not getting in each other's way.
It makes everybody actually go the same direction a lot faster as well.
It's great. All right. Well, I'm really bogs you down in these personal hacks. They're fantastic. This is all about leading yourself, sorting out your own world at work and beyond. Then we'll move to number 2. I like the way that you've broken leadership down, mate. I mentioned that at the beginning, but the idea of breaking it down from leading myself to leading others is not what we normally do, but you've broken it down to leading myself, leading others one-on-one, and leading a team, which makes perfect sense. So give us some of your top one-on-one hacks, leading someone one-on-one.
Yeah, I think the biggest one, and probably the one that I use the most with clients, is what I call the delegation hack. And most leaders don't delegate. We know that. All the research shows that, and I got to put my hand up as well. I know there are times when I should have delegated to one of my staff, and I just didn't.
You thought, it's easier just to do it myself.
Correct. It's that voice in the back of the head that says, the amount of time it's going to take to communicate it to them, I can just do it myself, which actually is true to an extent.
The first time.
There are some things that, you can do quicker. Correct. But if you multiply that over and over again, but it's more than that. It's about developing your people to step up to the next level. Yeah. So I look at this going, wow, you had a great opportunity to develop your people, get them to step up. And because you were so selfish, you chose not to. Yeah. And I think that's what we need to get leaders to start doing. We need to get them to start delegating. So for me, I kind of fell across this delegation hack a number of years ago. The first company I had in Australia when I came out about 22 years ago was a conference team building company. And if you remember back in the late 90s, everything was the rage with outdoor team building. I don't remember if you remember those little activities outside. Yeah. And that's the company that I did. I did that in America for about 6 years before that. Came out here, started doing that. And in part of my process, one of my strategies was, how do I scale my business really quick? And I didn't have a lot of cash. I didn't want to actually have a whole bunch of full-time employees. So what I did is I put together a partnership with some conference centers and resorts around Sydney. And the philosophy was, well, if we do team building activities there, they'll have a chance to get more conference room nights. Well, this worked really well. And see, what happened is we ended up getting 5 conference centers that we became partnerships with, which was great because we didn't have any sales staff besides me and my partner at the time. But every one of these resorts had a conference sales staff of between 4 and 7 full-time staff.
Wow.
So suddenly we had 5 centers times 5. We had 25 people promoting our conference team building, which was really great. But where the delegation hat came about is in one of these, we actually got a staff member that was north of Sydney in Terrigal at the Crown Plaza. So we actually took that site over, and in the exchange, we got another staff member, and her name was Claire. And Claire was amazing. Still good friends with me to this day. And she was a bull at a gate, and she would never give up, which was great. But one of the things that I found with Claire is she never took the time to plan.
Yeah.
She wouldn't plan it out. She would just go, and then things would fall off the rails a little bit. So to get her integrated into the systems we had, again, she was up, 2 hours north of Sydney. Once a fortnight, I would travel up or she would travel down on the train, and we'd spend some time looking at what activities are on her plate. And what I started doing is I started mapping like a little mind map about here's the task. And I'd ask her, what do you think you need to do to try and get this task accomplished? And as she would share the ideas, I would map it out on a sheet of paper. Not everything she wrote, but just kind of the steps. And that's essentially how the delegation model came to be.
Yeah, right.
Because most leaders don't know how to delegate.
Yeah.
There's 4 levels of delegation. So the top level is what I call level 4. Level 4 is I'm going to delegate it to you. I'm going to sit back and look for the results.
Yeah. So you're able to do it. You understand the task. You're a mature professional.
Correct. And this is the biggest mistake most leaders make, right? They get it. They're new to the role, or they get a new staff member and they go, oh, you've been in the industry for 10 years.
Yeah, here, do this.
You know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Do this. And it comes back and it's not the level you want, or they don't make the time frame you want. What I find, most leaders give people 2 goes. All right, that didn't work, that one. A week later, let me delegate another task. And they still don't achieve it. And then what happens is, you know what? I'm not going to delegate to this person anymore because I don't want to risk my reputation or the needs of our department or our business to not get done.
When really it's been the quality of the delegation that's the problem, the way the work has been delegated. So you're reminding me there of situational leadership, where we think about the 2 variables in delegating a task are the complexity of a task and the maturity of the person who you want to do the task. That, if it's a complex.
And the third level.
Yeah, sorry.
The third level is the leader's ability to communicate.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that's missing. Situation leadership's brilliant.
Nice.
But it's how do I communicate it, and how do I turn it into kind of a learning session rather than not giving things to people that aren't kind of there yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the knee-jerk reaction is people go from level 4, which is delegating everything, and they knee-jerk down to level 1, which is I'm not going to delegate to this person at all.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Can't risk my reputation. Thought they were good, but they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to this. And that's where a lot of leaders get stuck, which is terrible. That's why all leaders are overloaded. That's why they don't have time to do the emails, right? That's why they don't have time to get rid of distractions, because they're doing a whole bunch of things that their staff should be doing for them. So level 2 is what I'm talking about that I did with Claire. Level 2 is sitting down with somebody and mapping it together.
Yeah.
Mapping what steps are, but it's asking them, not telling them. So what do you think we need to do to make this happen?
And I really like the diagram. If you're listening, just picture the diagram. Just in a circle in the middle of the page, describe the task, and then out of that, in mind map fashion, just each of the major tasks that you would need to complete that task, the overall task, each of the steps that you would take, and if there are sub steps of those, then there's the next rung of the mind map. And then there's the next phase of prioritizing and putting some deadlines around it as well, Scott.
Correct.
So simple.
That's
Great. Fantastic.
Thing. Just map it. It's got to be on one sheet of paper, or it can be on a tablet. I've done it on tablets with staff as well. But the whole goal is that you do it with them.
Yeah.
And the reason why is the relationship shifts. They see that you're asking them, you're empowering them, you're still guiding them, because if they get stuck, you're still going to say, oh, here's a step. And then the other thing you do is you ask them to sequence it. What do you think you need to do first, second, third, fourth?
Yeah.
And you number it on that sheet of paper or on the iPad, and there's the written action plan.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I really like it. In its simplicity, it was so lovely. That's one of those things that I've read that I thought to myself, I am absolutely going to do that. That is so lovely and simple. Scott, we are quickly running out of time because I've interrupted you so many times through our conversation. But let's get on to the third category, the team hacks. Hit us with something about team meetings, mate, because we've talked about one of the great evils of the workplace already. That's emails. But the second of the great evils, and lack of creativity because we don't have time. And the next, the third of the great evils are team meetings or just meetings in general. We all know that we spend too much time in meetings. We all know that we're in meetings that are not organized, that last too long, where the results or the objectives aren't met. What are your great hacks to save us from meetings?
Yeah, there's a lot. If you look at all the time that people lose in meetings, it's massive. And I reckon it's amplified even further, especially because we can now quickly schedule meetings with people at a click of a button, which means everybody just shows up.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing that you need to do, and there's two parts of it. First of all, what's the purpose of the meeting? And that's what I find. People aren't sure of what is the purpose. Is it just getting together to chat? Well, if it's getting together just to have a chat, that's not really effective. And the challenge is a lot of people, or quite a few people, they just like having a chat.
Yeah.
So what is the actual purpose of the meeting? And people need to know what that is ahead of time. And specifically, there's really 4 types of team meetings. And this also goes to the purpose. One team meeting is about reporting, right? So it's just the reporting where we need somebody to report and we need everybody together to know what it is, right? That's probably the most common meeting that most people have across Australia or across the world.
Really?
The second type of team, absolutely. Every one of the clients I work with, sales team meeting, every Monday morning, we are going to have a sales reporting meeting. Yeah. Other organizations, it's the same thing. Monday morning, it is the market share meeting. Yeah, what's our market share in the last week? Or monthly market share. And it's across the industry. So it can be in banking, they do it, in finance, they do it, in retail, they do it. Yeah, it's across the board. So reporting is one. And again, you can have a reporting meeting. I think reporting meetings can be useful, but at the same time, you got to be clear on what you want to do. Because what I find is people try and do too many things in their meeting.
Yeah, right. Too many different types of meetings. Yeah.
So the 4 types of meeting, one's reporting. The second type of meeting is problem solving, right? We got a problem, let's fix it. The third one is decision making, which is we've got some facts, we've got to make a decision. And then the fourth one is what I call strategy development, right? Where we need to look at, what's our strategy, where we need to be either as an organization or as a project or as a product team, moving forward.
Planning
and
type
what
stuff.
I find is the planning things. And what I find is most people combine the team meetings. So we say we're going to have a team meeting and it's a reporting meeting, but it's also a problem solving meeting and a decision making meeting.
So in your mind, Scott, is it a lot more efficient to just have 2 separate meetings? So you have your reporting meeting and you absolutely nail that bit. And then, later in the day or tomorrow, then you have your problem solving meeting. By combining those 2 different types, you reckon it just gets a bit sloppy and inefficient?
I think it gets sloppy because some of the people in the room don't need to be in there for either the reporting or the problem solving.
Yeah.
So what it means is you're wasting people's time because sometimes you might have, it could be an executive team meeting and there might be, 11 people on the executive and going through and reporting their KPIs, right? And, and then get into off track on one particular issue, which is only relevant for 3 of the departments. So what happens is everybody spends the next 90 minutes
in a meeting they don't need to be.
And some of them don't even have any expertise of what the current process or systems are in those areas. So they're just making it up, which means it's going to take more time because then other people have to explain, well, that would make sense, but our system does X, Y, and Z. So what you just said kind of isn't relevant.
That's more of Dermot Crowley's friction, isn't it, coming out in those situations?
Correct.
Creating
it keeps
friction.
Coming out. So if you want to have a reporting meeting, what I talked about in the book is have a 3-step process. So first thing, communicate the results or KPIs. Second thing, share your immediate plan or activity that you're focusing on next, right? And then the third thing is if you do need assistance, let people know, and then you can schedule a separate meeting just for the people that are actually relevant or can assist for a separate problem-solving meeting if somebody is having issues.
Yeah.
Very quick way to hack a team meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Mate, that's great stuff. Look, I could talk to you all night about these type of hacks because they're so interesting in everything that you've just described. If you work in an office environment, if you work in a large organization or a medium organization where you've got all of these different things going on, lots of emails, distractions, meetings, all of these things, you know that if you were to add it all up over a week, a month, a year, there is so much time lost through these distractions and inefficiencies and not needing to be there and just not doing stuff the smart way. And if you were to just pick out, I reckon 3, I'm thinking I'm going to do 3 of the things you said from tomorrow, Scott. And I reckon if everyone was just to pick a few of them, you would just, I don't know, I'm really looking forward to the benefits of the ones that I've picked out because they're really powerful. They're clever. They're the definition of hacks in that way. They're just smart, clever things to do that we really should be doing and not ignoring the downside of our bad habits.
Yeah, and it helps not only get results. The other thing that it does, it helps improve your influence and your impact on the people around you.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with everybody so busy, the more you can improve the culture of an organization or a team or a department, the better everybody else is. So yeah, you can kind of knock off 2 tasks with the same approach.
2 birds with 1 stone. Scott, that is a wonderful place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining me on the Team Guru podcast. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Great. Thanks very much, David.
And that was Scott Stein. I like the way he thinks about leadership. It's practical, it's clever. There are a bunch of things from that conversation that you can take away and start doing right now. Personally, I really enjoyed talking about his email hacks. I'm going to do the 3-2-1-0 thing as of right now. I love it. I'm going to check my emails 3 times a day. I'm going to give myself 21 minutes to do it, and I'm going to aim to get my inbox down to 0. Emails, as you've heard me rave on about before, are one of the main pain points for so many people I work with. The other one I really loved was the simple way of delegating a task, sitting down with your colleague and creating a simple mind map. Name of the task circled in the middle of the page. All the steps that need to be completed to nail that task become branches, with sub-branches if necessary. You put them in an order of priority and you give them a time frame. But most importantly, you get the other person, the person to whom you're delegating, the person you want to take ownership of the task, to do the drawing. So they own the conversation and the process. There's 2 hacks that I'm going to start using today. What about you? Was there anything in there that you're going to get cracking on straight away? As always, I'll share the lessons I took from my conversation with Scott on the Lessons Learned page for this podcast. You'll find it along with the entire back catalogue of Team Guru podcasts on our website. That's teamswithan.s.guru/podcast. Connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, or LinkedIn, and join me for the next episode on this, my mission to bring to life the theory and principles of leadership. This is David Frizzell for Team Guru. Bye for now.